Okay, let's react to Miss Private Investigator Sully here. I haven't heard this. People send these things to me, and I'll go through them as I hear. So I want to see what she's got to say here.
Happy Monday, it's your favorite true crime host, Sully, and today I'm here to answer adventures questions on the Darlie Routier case. She's all for finding clear evidence if it was someone else, but what evidence points to an intruder in the Routier house that night? Well, let's go through a few pieces of evidence, piece by piece, and I'll break it down for you. And if you have any questions, shoot me back a comment and we'll address.
Unless you're a non-supporter, because she won't answer you if you do that.
It, okay? The first big piece of evidence in my case is that there is signs of an intruder coming in through the garage window. The Routier house had 3 pretty large windows that you could just walk right over, almost.
There's actually 4 windows. 1, 2, 3, 4. But who's counting? This window right here on the end is the window screen that Charles Lynch used to do his study on this screen right here. But there's 4. No big deal. But if you're claiming to be an expert, you should know this. Every detail counts.
Almost like a bay window, but they were 3 vertical windows that.
It was not a bay window at all. It was a straight window. Bay windows are they go out and around.
Lined the garage. One of those windows was open, and although the house was locked, the sliding glass door, the front door, the back door, the door between the laundry room and the garage was not locked. So when they came in through that window in the garage, they were able to come in through that unlocked door. And here is a picture of the window. This is what it looks like when somebody, or when police arrive. And so, the family had said that they did leave it open, like to get air. You remember how
The family did not say they left it open to get air. Dana, who did not testify and who does not go to visit Darlie, the sister, she stated on a show that Darlie and Darren did not smoke inside their house. So she would go and sit on this and ash out the window. And she left the window open by accident. She just left it open. And she has to live with that. Poor her. I mean, but that would only be if an intruder came in.
it's June in Texas. And so the window was up, but you can go into better pictures and see where this is cut into a T shape. So also originally they found a blonde hair in said screen.
Okay, look at the way that Sully thinks, right? It's really hot in June. The weather's just smoldering hot. And the only window that you have open in the house is one that's way off in the garage. She doesn't know why the window was left open. It wasn't because of the heat. It's minute, but every detail counts.
Which led initial investigators to believe that Darlie Routier left that hair. However, over here is Officer Sarah Jones, and when the forensics come back in 1997, after Darlie's trial has already started, that forensically, that hair, blonde hair, comes back to this Officer Sarah Jones.
And she's correct about that. And it was Charles Lynch who examined the hair, and he said it was consistent with Darlie's. And if you look at the both of them right here, they both got this dark root showing through right here. It's both their dyed hair. So no one said that it was Darlie's. They said it was consistent with Darlie's. Yeah, and it was.
Due to this, before Darlie's trial started, her bail was denied. Specifically, it's written in there due to this blonde hair, which at the time didn't even belong to Darlie Routier. So her bail was denied. Also, after
Yeah, they wanted to bring her bail down to $100,000. It was denied because they weren't sure about that test, but there were a lot of other reasons why it was denied as well. There was a lot of tests. It wasn't just because of that hair, but I'll do a completely different video about that. If you look at Jimmy Patterson's arrest warrant and James Cron's reasons that he felt that she was guilty, that blonde hair is not even mentioned at all in it.
initial investigators believed this was an inside job, thanks to James Cron, they quickly assumed.
There we go with the thanks to James Cron shit, right? Remember, James Cron didn't get there till 6:30, about 6 o'clock. All the other investigators that had been there were not believing Darlie's story. They weren't believing Darlie's story. The only people that believed her was the people at Baylor who claimed, she said she was attacked. They did not believe her story. Waddell couldn't understand why he would tell her to help and she wouldn't. So then when Cron walks through, right, he sees this, and that, and he starts to think, and his initial response is, this is an inside job. I think this is an inside job. And then they commenced to prove it. They proved it was an inside job. But, they're going to blame it all on Cron.
So Cron assumed fairly quickly on that Darlie was responsible for.
No, he did not assume fairly quickly on that Darlie was responsible for this. See, that's where you're fucking stupid. He said it was inside a job. He didn't say whether Darlie did it or not. In fact, the only uninjured adult in the house was Darren. And Darren was questioned extensively. When they came to Darren, when Patterson came to Darlie's bedside to question her, they didn't question her about her doing it. They questioned her about him doing it. And she even says so in an interview. It was really clear to me what they were trying to say. So they looked at all other avenues. Don't fuck with me, Sully.
This. However, after he's made this assumption and police are collecting evidence against Darlie, an officer just before daylight that morning finds a sock, and this red patch will come back to match Devin and Damon forensically.
Okay, think about this logically and forensically. Now, I'm not a mortician, a funeral home operator, medical person, or person that worked in mental health, or a private investigator. But I do have some common sense. If the attacker used that sock as a glove, and then he stabbed Damon and got Damon's blood on it, then he stabbed Devin and got Devin's blood on it, then he sliced and stabbed and poked at Darlie, but there's not a single spot of her blood on it. What's that tell you? And you got to remember, she has a slice wound, it's like not 9 inches across. That's how close that knife was to her splurting wound. She had a splurting wound in her neck, and she didn't get a single drop. There's not a single drop of her blood on that sock. Things that make you go,
Now, this sock is a key player in the case because it throws the timeline off. And
it does not throw the timeline off. But I'm going to listen to what she's got to say.
in Darlie's case, there is a very tight timeline.
There is no very tight timeline. The timeline started as soon as Darren Routier went to bed, if there is a timeline. So that gave her plenty of time. The boys could be asleep. She could flip that table over quietly. That's why they noticed that the plant that was on top of that table, none of the leaves were bent up. None of Cron noticed that from a fall. She could have turned that over, working herself up. Boys are still sleeping. Go in the kitchen, get that serrated knife, slip out the sliding glass back door that's just a few feet away from that window. at that screen from the outside, because you have watched L.A. Law and shows like this, so you did cut it from the outside, right, Darlie? Then come back in, put that knife back in the block, then do the deed. Stab the two boys, run the sock down the alley to get rid of it. You try to throw it in the storm drain, but you don't. You miss. Then you come back and you're standing at the kitchen sink. You have to do something to yourself to make it look like you're wounded. So first you pull out your nightshirt and poke it 3 or 4 times to see how tight that's got to be to get through it. Charles Lynch noticed that. Then as you're slicing your throat, you notice that Damon is crawling away. Now you have to pick up that knife and attack him again up against the side of the wall. That's why you're so worried about them. Maybe we could have got the prints. Because if there would have been Darlie's prints on there, she would have just said, well, that was the knife I was using for dinner. So that's how we feel like it happened.
Not only that, and sorry it's cut off, but this is 85J, Exhibit 85J. This is Darlie Routier's prints. This is 85J. It was found on a glass table inside the perimeter of the crime scene, and somebody had left there. It's actually probably one of these fingers, not a thumbprint, but it was left in Darlie Routier's own blood. So we know that that fingerprint had to have been sat in that blood before blood drives. Now, of course, this fingerprint has been compared to everybody in the family, EMTs, police officers, law enforcement, neighbors, anybody that was on that scene. To this day, nearly 30 days later, this fingerprint has never been identified.
30 days later? I don't know if the fingerprint was ran across to everyone in the family. It may have been, but they said it was unidentifiable. Even their own experts said that they felt like it was an index ring finger that from Darlie, that it couldn't even be. Darlie is not excluded from that. She's going to say she is, though. Watch, they always do.
And if law enforcement runs it through CODIS, this fingerprint, and since Darlie is sitting on death row and obviously she's in the CODIS APHIS system, when you run this print, it doesn't even come back to Darlie.
That's a first. I've never heard of it being run. That's a first, and I might have to get with Pam on that. What do you mean they ran that print and it didn't come back to Darlie? That's new. It's either a fucking lie or it's new, because I ain't never heard that shit.
So we don't know where this print came from, and remember, it's in her blood. So speaking of her blood, let's get into some of her injuries. As you can tell, her neck was slit. This over here is not a continuation. This is an actual sharp force wound to this area of her body.
Wrong. There's a skip wound. A lot of us think that the nightshirt may have done that. The skip wound, and then there's another slice, and then there's a poke right there. There's 2 wounds right there, Sully.
Here's another sharp force wound that was on her right arm, which to me, this would be a defensive wound with that sharp force trauma to that part of your arm. When you put your arm.
Of course, to you, it would be a defense wound. Okay? To you, it would be, because you support Darlie Routier. To us, it's a self-inflicted one.
Up to defend yourself, that's exactly where this sharp force trauma occurred. And then
okay, if she was able to put her arms up and fend off that knife, how did he make these cuts? How did he get through? If you want to see defensive wounds, look at the pictures of Travis Alexander, who was Jodi Arias's victim. He put his hands up and they were meaty gashed. Bad.
And look at this bruising. I mean, people that say that Darlie sharp force weaponed herself to her chest, then she had to switch hands and do it.
Why did she have to switch hands? Go.
to her arm, and then she has to create all of this bruising in this tight timeline that we can't even.
No, she did not create all that bruising in that tight timeline. Dr. Alexandro Santos felt like he didn't even see that bruising beginning or injury of that sort on her arms at all until a follow up, which was probably done the same day that she went to the Rowlett Police Department to go, look at my bruises.
Even no one from the prosecutor, I've never seen somebody with a concrete timeline that shows that Darlie is guilty. So
You don't have to have a concrete timeline that shows that Darlie is guilty. Just like Barb Davis said, there is no timeline. Barb Davis, the one that they trusted so much, the prosecution doesn't have to come up with a timeline. The defense has to defend her from one. And you know, we stopped that whole 9-minute shit, didn't we? The medical examiner said she could only live a maximum of 9 minutes. Yeah. See, you're much faking shit here.
if that's something that you guys want to figure out, go for it. I'd love to hear a timeline where Darlie is guilty in this sense.
Okay, you'd love to hear the timeline? Again, I just gave it to you. It started when Darren went to bed. That's when she was able to do things without being seen. That's when it started. The boys are asleep. Darren went to bed. She could do what she wanted to do. Not only did Darren go to bed, in my opinion, she threatened him with a separation again, and he fucking told her, "You good. In the morning, you can get your shit and get the fuck out of my house." So she's down there boiling the timeline. Explain it. It's easy. It's easy. The boys are asleep. She's working herself up to paying Darren back. Spousal Revenge Filicide by Dr. Philip Resnick, whose name was actually mentioned in the trial. But she's down there boiling. She says, "You know what? I'm going to make him fucking pay." So she flips that table over. Boys don't hear it. She does it quietly. Tara's dumbass thought that Devin got cut by the table that's tempered glass and it's rounded off. Put the plant down. That's all she had to do. It only took her 5 minutes to set the stage. Flip the table over, put the plant down, slip outside, cut the screen, stab the two boys. And you got to get rid of that sock quickly because you know you got to call 911. I think she went out the front and around because of the shoes. That's my opinion. She got rid of it. She comes back in. She's in a hurry. She's oh my god, she's in a hurry. So she pokes her arm. That hurts. So she pokes her chest. That hurts. And then she leans up against that sink and she sticks her neck out over that sink and she starts to cut. And there's a skip wound because it hurts. And after she does that, while she's doing that, she sees Damon from over the counter crawling 25 feet away from where he was originally stabbed. So she goes and finishes him. Then she calls 911. Tell me why that's not possible. Then she calls 911. She conveniently does not scream at all during this attack until the intruder is gone. She doesn't scream for Darren until she turns around and comes back and flips the light on. So the intruder's gone. That's a good time to scream. You know, because as soon as I saw a man, if I was a female, in my kitchen, first thing I would think, is that my husband? The second thing I would think is, oh, fucking shit. And scream. Scream.
We can see that the bruising continues not all the way up to her armpit, but also all the way down to her wrist, which makes me believe that somebody like grabbed onto her wrist in this type of fashion.
Well, you'd be wrong because the doctors both testified that they felt like that was from blunt force trauma. Also, when I spoke to Cyrilda, which I don't know how much clarity this has, she said that Darlie bruised up like that the same way when she was given IVs for Damon's birth.
As she's fighting with her arms, and they're able to get a
If she has the wherewithal to fight and block wounds, right? How long this is going on? Seconds, quickly. But if you've got to fight and somebody's on you, you're gonna scream. Women didn't scream. You're gonna scream. It's natural. But she didn't. Nor did this intruder give her any verbal commands whatsoever. None. None. And most, quietly kill somebody.
slip through to the chest, and they're able to get a slip through or a sharp force trauma to this part of her arm. So going back to the Ellen Greenberg case, and I do have a video I'll put out tomorrow or the next day comparing the two cases, like we talk about the vertical and horizontal plane.
That's because you have to compare Darlie's case with somebody else's. It's a typical thing that, Darlie supporters do. They compare it to something else, but no. It's not from Joe Blow down the street here. Same thing Barb Davis said. We're talking about Darlie Routier, not Joe Blow down the street here. Remember, Barbara Davis. She changed her mind, remember?
Not only did Darlie Routier have sharp force trauma to the vertical and horizontal plane, but also she
did not have sharp force trauma there. Blunt force trauma.
Would have had to switch hands from her non.
No, you do not have to switch hands. Why would you have to switch hands? Who says she's not ambidextrous? You don't have to.
From her dominant to her non-dominant hand. So when we get into some of the BPA, I did flip this photo around, but you can find it. This is the back of her t-shirt. So where her throat was cut like this, you'd think, as the prosecution states, she was standing up over the sink. Well, if you take your non-dominant hand, this is my left hand, and you drag it down your throat in that manner, and this is where the weapon about so ends. And then, like I said, she has a secondary, it's not a carry through, a secondary sharp force like this. So this blood on the back of her t-shirt, if she slits like this, the blood on the front should have ran this way. You can see the front of her shirt. It's hard to make any patterns out because of how much blood Darlie actually lost. This is what I'm talking about right here, is this where this green, come on, this where this green dot is right there. That is the back of her t-shirt. So to me, she had to have been laying vertical for that blood to come up and over her shoulder. And lastly, I'm going to end.
She's right about her laying. That's how the blood went down. We know that she was laying on the couch. She was laying on the stretcher. She was laying on the stretcher, right? And if you're on the stretch, if you're laying down, your neck kind of flattens out, and you'll get a groove in your neck. It could roll right back there. That is why how it got back there, from her sitting on the stretcher, in my opinion.
On this right here, where it says pubic hair root, pubic hair shaft, and facial hair, okay, these first four, we have all the alleles right here of the family. Now, they couldn't get, back in 1996, forensics or DNA off the pubic hair. However, the facial hair allele pattern, the 1828, I believe, does not match any of the allele patterns of the actual Routier family. So you have a pubic hair and a facial hair that was found near the couch where Darlie and the boys were sleeping. So again, this makes
that means absolutely nothing, because we went through this before. There was an FBI, I don't remember his name. He's a profiler. It's not Brantley, but he proved that you could take a clean vacuum cleaner and vacuum up a crime scene, and then take that bag, right, and get some hairs out of it, or whatever's in it, and then you can go back and you can get more hairs, and then you go back, and it's never ending. The hairs don't prove anything. Uh, Hairs could fall off of people that came to visit. Hairs could, they could have been a first responder, but it proves nothing. It doesn't prove a thing. It doesn't prove that Darlie didn't kill her kids, and it doesn't prove that an intruder did.
Me believe between the screen being cut, it's not Darlie's hair that's on the screen. This DNA, 85J fingerprint, the sock, and Darlie's bruises, in my opinion, all points to the fact that Darlie Routier is innocent.
And you have to put that look on your face to say that. That proves it to you. How easy.
Not only that, but like she really just doesn't have a motive. I mean, if her
Well, you would know in your studies of medical and all this private investigating, you would know. You don't have to prove a motive, but she did have a motive. She had spousal revenge, filicide, lack of financials, the desire to be young again and run around and have naked time. This kid stood in the way.
motive was filicide, then she left her youngest and considered them probably the hardest child at 8 months old to take care of.
She didn't left him. She didn't left him. She made an attempt on him, according to Helena, but she didn't leave him. Not at all. The most expensive ones would be the ones that are growing up. The ones that are older, they're more expensive. She didn't left him nothing.
That child is left alone.
That child was not left alone. That child was left with his father where he couldn't be attacked by his mother.
And so is Darlie's husband because the baby and Darren were sleeping upstairs. Darlie was sleeping downstairs with the two boys. Now, it's my belief that somebody looked through the window. They could see Darlie laying on the couch, but they couldn't see the boys on the.
So they could walk up to the back screen window without setting off the alarm? The motion light? If it was me and I was just roguing a neighborhood and I saw that fucking TV and that locked back gate, and then even let's say I ignored the TV light and I went through the locked back gate, but then I look in that window and I see all that animal stuff, I'm done. I'm done.
The floor. They go in to attack Darlie and don't even realize the boys are down there until they're literally standing on top of them. And I've done a lot of work on this case, and I have a 10-part series where we get more into the trial and how the state's narrative came to be. And also, I recently just figured out or found out that all of these officers that came to the scene, forensics people, even the 911 dispatcher was not up to date on their T-Cole.
Whoa. That's interesting. You just found that out. That's fucking interesting, Rich Prater. Because I just sent that over to him yesterday. But the thing of it is the officers and the dispatchers may not have been up to par on their certifications. But let's look at it. Oh, well, they're not up on their certifications. Let her out, right? That doesn't mean Darlie didn't do it. Cron does not fall under that. Lynch does not fall under that, and Bill Parker does not fall under that.
Violation, or they were in violation of T-Cole, which is the licenseship program that you get like all of your hours needed to be a police officer. So they can.
Now you're really worried about their certifications, right? Which isn't going to mean anything in the court of law. What you're saying here, the T-Cole. You're worried about their certifications. But you come on YouTube and TikTok and tell people that you're a private investigator with no certification. None. That T-Cole's not going to work.
Contaminated this crime scene because they had no idea what they were doing. That bloody shirt that we looked at of Darlie's was thrown into a bag with other pieces of bloody evidence. And
wow, that's interesting too. So what blood got on what and where? They have to prove that. You're just looking for a technicality. You're looking for everything that they did wrong and not what Darlie did wrong.
they were not separated and laid out to dry. They took a washcloth under Darlie's fingernails that was lost. There's just a lot of issues in this case that I think need to be addressed. So if you have any more questions, let me know and I will figure it out for you if I don't already know the answer. You guys have an awesome Monday and we'll be back soon. Bye. Happy Monday at your favorite true crime host.
Well, I have to give her this. She's getting a little bit better at the case, but still lacking. They didn't have their T-Cole. It's not going to go anywhere. That's funny because I just sent that over to Rich Prater yesterday.